Once upon a time, there were two brothers named Jules and Sacha. One day in December, the two boys and their parents decided to put up their Christmas tree and all their decorations. So they got to work and they spent all day hanging up lights and decorating the walls and the ceilings and the windows. And the two boys were having so much fun that after their parents went to bed that night, they got up and they kept decorating late into the night until they were so tired they fell fast asleep right there on the living room floor. The next morning, Jules and Sacha woke up to see the wonderful Christmas decorations they had put up the day and the night before. But Jules looked at the tree and noticed something that he hadn't seen there the night before. There was one new ornament hanging on the tree. It was a beautiful, shimmering snowflake. Maybe the most beautiful ornament they had ever seen. But it definitely wasn't one that they had hung up. There's no way they could have forgotten about one that looked like this. This snowflake even looked like it was glowing. And when Jules picked it up and held it in his hands, they looked outside and saw that snow was starting to fall gently around their house. And this was very unusual because they lived in a place where it was warm all year long. They almost never saw snow like this. And the funny thing was, when Jules hung the ornament back on the tree, the snow stopped. And then when he picked it back up and held it in his hand again, the snow started falling again. Do you think Mom and Dad know about this? Jules asked Sacha. But Sacha just shook his head. And when the two boys saw the snowflake's magical power, they realized something very unusual was going on here. There was no way their parents put this here, but if their parents didn't do it, who did? Jules and Sacha were amazed at the snow that was falling outside, and it was even starting to stick to the ground. So they took turns holding it all day long, and that snow kept falling and falling and falling. And by the end of the day, nobody in their family could believe how much snow had fallen outside. They had never seen so much snow in all their lives. Not just here, but anywhere. They hadn't even seen this much snow in the movies before. It was piled so high that it was taller than their front door. Jules and Sacha ran to the second floor of their house and they opened their bedroom window and they stepped outside the window and they just walked right onto the snow. The snow was piled that high. It was covering their entire first floor. And then they grabbed their sleds and they went sliding down a nearby hill. And it was a lot of fun. And after playing outside for hours and throwing snowballs and building a huge snow fort and digging a bunch of tunnels that connected under the snow, they walked back to their window of their bedroom on the second floor of their house, and they walked downstairs and they had some hot cocoa, and then they went to bed. That night, just like the night before, they were so tired from all the fun they had had that day, and they fell asleep the second their heads hit their pillows. And when they woke up the next morning, they walked downstairs, and as they stumbled past their Christmas tree, they noticed that there was another new ornament on the tree, but this one looked like a silver dove. And as soon as Sacha picked it up, he heard a voice coming from outside that he had never heard before.
Hey, Tweety, do you think that family in there is ever gonna put out some seeds for us poor birds? I mean, they got all this nice food stored up in their house. Can't they ever share some of that good stuff with us? Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Kiwi. I wouldn't hold your breath, but man, it sure would be nice to snack on some of that yummy food they got there in their house.
Sacha turned around and was shocked to find that those voices were coming from two birds who were sitting outside their window. How was that even possible? Hey, Jules, are you hearing what I'm hearing? Said Sacha. Jules couldn't hear anything. But as soon as Sacha put the silver dove into Jules' hands, Jules' eyes opened wide and a look of shock crossed his face. Both boys realized the silver dove ornament gave them the ability to understand and to even speak to the animals when they held it. Jules and Sacha walked to the window and they stuck their heads out, and Jules said,
"Can I help you two birds with something? Did you need something from our house?" And now the birds were shocked. They couldn't believe that the two boys actually understood them, and now they could understand the two boys, too.
Tweety said,
Yeah, sure. We'll take some snacks from your house.
And then Jules called out to the entire neighborhood, "Hey, birds and squirrels! If you can understand me, come to the window and I'll give you all some snacks." And within seconds, there were dozens, no, hundreds of birds, squirrels, chipmunks, rabbits, and other little creatures crowding around their window. And after the boys threw a few handfuls of nuts and seeds outside, they slammed the window shut, too shocked to speak. And as the rest of the day went on, the two brothers were amazed at the snowflake and the silver dove ornaments and the magic behind each one. But where did these ornaments come from? And would they discover something else tomorrow? After a long day of talking to every animal in the neighborhood and feeding them all the snacks and seeds and nuts they had in their house, the kids were ready for bed. And once again, they fell fast asleep. And when they woke up the next morning, they discovered yet another new ornament on their tree. This one was a shimmering star, and it was all the way up at the very top. The boys pulled a chair over to the tree, and Jules stood on the chair, and then Sacha climbed up onto Jules' shoulders, and together they were able to pluck that star off the top of the tree.
"What do you think this one does?"
asked Sacha as he held it in his hands. And then all of a sudden, a beam of light started shining brightly out of the star, almost like a high-powered flashlight or a laser beam, and the light was pointing at something. It was shining right at something underneath the couch in their living room. Jules looked where the light was pointing and said, "Hey, is that what I think it is?" Jules looked closer, and it was his favorite toy. It was his baby Yoda he had lost months ago. He thought that thing was long gone, but the shimmering star from the tree just pointed out where it had been hidden this whole time. And then as the boys walked through their house holding the star, another beam of light shot out and pointed right at something on the bookshelf. "Huh, that's strange," Jules said as he walked over to the bookshelf and started moving the books around. "I wonder why the star was pointing at this old thing. Wait, what?" And before Jules could finish his sentence, he spotted something shiny behind one of the books. He reached behind the book and pulled out what looked like an old watch. "I wonder what this old thing is doing back here," Jules said. And just then, their dad walked up behind them and said, Jules? What do you have there? Where did you find that?" "Why, Dad?" Jules replied. And their dad said, "This watch belonged to my great-great-grandfather, and it's been lost for ages. I can't believe you found this." And their dad ran off into the other room to call his family and tell them all the news. Once again, Jules and Sacha couldn't believe what was happening. This shining star had the power to uncover all kinds of lost and hidden things. And as they started walking back to the Christmas tree, the star started shining another beam of light. But this time, it was pointing to the closet at the end of the hall. So the two boys walked to the end of the hall and opened up the closet as the star shined its beam of light down into the corner of the closet, down near the floor, where the kids saw something they had never noticed before. It looked like some kind of lever or something. So Sacha reached down and he pulled the lever, and then all of a sudden, the back wall of the closet started moving. It opened up, and they saw a long, dark hallway that led to a place that neither of them knew was ever connected to their house. And just as they were about to take their first steps down the dark hallway, they heard their mom say,
"Boys, time for bed."
Jules and Sacha slammed the door and ran to their room, both of them too stunned to speak. Once again, the kids slept hard that night, which was a good thing, because they would need every ounce of their energy for the next day, where their tree would have yet another surprise waiting for them. And this would be the biggest one yet. But that's a story for another day.